A lovely afternoon to you. This is Adaba 88.9 FM, and we welcome you on this special interview program that will be featuring officials of the INEC. Specifically, I have with me in the studios this afternoon the National Commissioner, Information and Voters Education. That's for INEC, Mr. Festus Okoye. Thank you very much for joining us on the program this afternoon.
Thank you so much.
Well, I must say that a lot has been said regarding the coming Guber election in Ondo State. First, it is no news that the world at large now is being faced with a challenge of COVID-19 and its adverse effects on both the economy and, of course, every other sector of human life. The first question that comes to mind in the midst of all of this is, how will INEC handle COVID-19 pandemic? And of course, the numerous electorate that would probably be out on that day to exercise their franchise.
That's exactly why we're here. Because we are facing what is called a new normal. We are facing a very uncertain period. We are conducting an election under a shadow of a pandemic that so many people do not have a very good understanding of. So the Commission has designed policies and programs that will enable us to conduct a good election, even in the midst of this uncertainty. And that's why we designed what we call our policy on conducting election within the context of COVID-19. And within the context of that particular policy, we have aligned most of our policies and programs to conform with that designed by the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 and the Nigerian Center for Disease Control. The first thing is that we are going to make sure that all our officials that are going to be out there on the field on the election day are properly trained. And we are going to train them on how to disinfect the polling units on election day. We are going to also provide them with hand sanitizers on election day. All our personnel will be provided with a face mask and the methylated spirit to clean the smart card readers. We're also relying on the media to assist us educate people relating to their responsibilities at the polling unit on election day. Okay. We have created what we call a two-tier a queuing system at the polling unit, an inner cordon and an outer cordon. And one of our assistant presiding officers will be charged with the responsibility of moving people from the outer cordon into the inner cordon. And we're also making it very clear that only persons who are wearing face mask or face covering will be allowed into the polling unit on election day and will be allowed to vote. And people must also observe physical distancing on election day. So these are some of the things we want the media to assist us get to the people of Ondo State, so that on election day we are going to have a seamless process, devoid of any rancor.
Okay, the question that this sets in my mind is if INEC could have officials that will be handling the enforcement of this new normal, like you rightly put it. For instance, physical distancing on election day could really sound difficult to achieve. You'd have a lot of people who would be eager, of course, to cast their votes. How do you intend to ensure that this is done?
Well, what we are training the security personnel that will assist with crowd control at the polling units, and we're also training our assistant presiding officers that will also be charged with the issue of moving people from the outer cordon into the inner cordon. We're also working very, very closely with the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19. We have a liaison officer that has been attached to the Commission on an advisory basis. We are going to also deploy infrared thermometers to all the polling units on election day.
Okay.
Based on that, we are going to be relying on the armed security agencies that will be at the polling unit to assist with crowd control. And we're also going to be reaching out to the various stakeholders, civil society groups and organizations, women's groups, the media, and other traditional rulers, religious leaders, to enlighten their people on what is demanded and required of them on election day. So we believe that with the much we're doing as at now, people will get to know that they need to cooperate with us and also observe physical distancing on election day and do what is right on election day.
Okay, amidst the whole speculations that we've had before, thankfully you're on air now to put pay to some of these misconception, so to say.
Yes.
There have been news of probably INEC would decide to shift the date of election or postpone the election date and all of that. So you could have probably managed the whole thing when I put your put things in place to ensure that you have a very peaceful election. Should electorate look forward to some sort of postponement before?
No. Look, over 70 countries, including advanced countries, postponed the elections on the basis of this particular pandemic. But our own situation and our own circumstances can be said to be different. We operate a written constitution where those who designed our constitution have written down the way they believe the country should be run. And if you look at section 178, subsection 2 of the Constitution, it provides a very clear timeline within which we must conduct both the Edo and Ondo governorship elections. And for this particular election, for the Ondo governorship election, we must conduct the election on or before the 25th day of January 2021.
Okay.
And based on that, we have fixed this particular election for the 10th day of October 2020 because for you to be declared as having been elected governor of this state, you must secure a majority of lawful votes cast in the election and also secure a quarter of the votes in 2/3 of all the local governments of this state. If no candidate meets this particular threshold, the Constitution says that we should conduct a second election within a period of 21 days of the declaration of that result. So the window between 10th of October and 25th of January is the window that has been allowed by the Constitution to enable us conduct a second election if there's a problem.
Okay.
This election will go on the 10th day of October 2020. We are not contemplating any shift. We have deployed all the non-sensitive materials to this particular state. We are already training the security personnel that will be charged with this particular election, and we are training various categories of our officers in relation to this election. So we are not contemplating any postponement whatsoever, and there is no basis for that contemplation as of today.
Okay, now talking about training officers, just on the news 2 days ago, we heard that about 14,000 ad hoc officials will be deployed for this election. How much of training has INEC given to these people, considering the fact that most of them would probably be core members?
Well, we have different categories of officers that will be trained. The presiding officers that will be trained will be presiding officers who are drawn from the rank of persons doing their national youth service. These are university graduates who already, some of them have conducted elections on behalf of the commission when they were students of federal tertiary institutions. Then the second category will be our assistant presiding officers 1, 2, and 3. These are people who will be drawn from students of federal tertiary institutions and are going to constitute the bulk of those who are going to be deployed, and we are going to have almost 13,000 of them. We are going to train them differently.
Okay.
Then we're also going to have what we call those we call collation officers. These are senior lecturers from federal tertiary institutions. They are going to also be trained differently. And then we have the security personnel that will be trained differently, and our electoral and assistant electoral officers that also receiving a different form of training. And then you have the supervisory presiding officers that are going to be drawn from federal agencies, commissions, and parastatals. They're also going to be trained differently because they're doing different things.
Okay.
So we have designed both physical and online programs for the training of all these people, and all these trainings are going on simultaneously, and we don't have any fears whatsoever relating to the robust nature of our training.
Speaking of online training, during yesterday's press conference, you were quoted to have said that INEC would be adopting electronic. Okay, let me quote you directly now.
Yes.
Use of technology in the electoral process.
Yes.
And as a way of of beating the adverse effects of COVID-19 on the entire process.
Yes.
How do you intend to go about? What's the modus operandi? How do you intend to make this work in a system where we have sometimes failure in the transmission of some of these things in the process? How would you ensure that this process goes unhindered and without any form of hitch?
Well, the technology we have adopted has been going on well. We are deepening the use of technology in the electoral process. All the political parties contesting this election in Ondo State filed the names and particulars and documents relating to their candidates electronically through our nomination portal.
Okay.
And it went very well. Civil society groups and organizations that are going to observe this particular election have also filed their own lists electronically, and it has gone well. The media that will also deploy to the various polling units to see how the election is going and report on them will also file their own electronically. So we are deepening the use of technology in the electoral process. And what we have done is that we also have liaison officers who have been trained to liaise with political parties, the media, civil society groups, and organizations, so that if there are technical issues, they can deal with some of these technical issues. But there are also transitional arrangements that we have put in place. Like, for instance, every political party that wants to deploy a poll agent or a party agent to the polling units is supposed to notify our commission at the local government level, and then file their photographs, their specimen signatures, and their names. But because of the fact that this is a transitional period, we've asked political parties that are unable to do that electronically to do that physically for this transitional period. But after this particular period, everything will be done electronically. And as you know, the results of the we transmitted, we created what we call a result viewing portal for the Nasarawa Central State Constituency election, through which from EC8A or the results from the polling units were uploaded into a central portal where members of the public could view the results coming from the polling units. We are going to deploy that in Edo State, and we are going to also deploy that in Ondo State, so that you can sit in the comfort of your home and see how results are coming in. And then that will create some level of transparency and bridge the gap between what goes on at the polling units and what goes on at the collation centers. So we are deepening the use of technology, and we believe that that is the way to go, and the Nigerian people are supporting us in this particular venture.
All right, in the last local government election held in Ondo State, we had a lot of complaints. We had a men on the field who went to cover that election, and most of the reports we had centered around violence, pockets of violence actually in certain areas, and the negligence of some of your officials to duty as well. Some of them got to their various polling units late. Sensitive materials could not get to their destination on time and all of that. So I want to know and I'm sure a lot of Ondo State residents would like to know what INEC is doing to correct all of this anomalies so we do not have a repeat of such.
There's one mistake people have been making over a period of time, and that is to equate what we do at the Independent National Electoral Commission with what goes on with the State's Independent Electoral Commission. The only relationship between the Independent National Electoral Commission and the State's Independent Electoral Commission is the fact that we are the only ones who are constitutionally mandated to register political parties, and we're also the only organization mandated to compile the list of registered voters. So the only thing we do, and the only nexus between the Commission and the State's Independent Electoral Commission, is that we give them a copy of the voters' register, and we give them a copy of the list of registered political parties in Nigeria. Other than that, in terms of the training of those who are going to do the elections, in terms of their deployment, in terms of printing of ballot papers, result sheets, and so on and so forth, they do it independently, and we have absolutely nothing to do with them. So our processes are more robust, and we want to assure the people of Ondo State that the Independent National Electoral Commission will deploy on time, and that some of the challenges they noticed in other elections will not be the type of challenges that they are going to notice in this election. Our own processes are more robust, and we are slightly more dynamic in terms of the conduct of elections.
All right, let's talk about another thing that's probably sometimes determine the outcome of elections. That's because of the way the polity has been handled in Nigeria, and that's vote buying. A lot of time we hear stories of political parties buying the conscience of voters on the election day, sometimes at the polling units. INEC is supposed to be the electoral umpire. How much of control do you have on this sort of development on election day? And how do you intend to ensure that
the whole thing, vote buying, is minimized on election day?
Well, we are working towards that. But I think, let me make it very clear that our remit and our mandate relates to the organization of election, the conduct of election, and the supervision of elections. This present commission and even previous commissions, we do not have the power to enforce the law. Vote buying is a criminal offense, it's an electoral offense. So because we don't have the mandate to enforce the law, we are now in collaborative cooperation with the EFCC and the ICPC and the DSS and other law enforcement agencies to make sure that nobody violates the sanctity of the polling units. But on our own part, we have also reconstructed and recalibrated the polling units in such a way that we can guarantee the secrecy of the vote on election day. And we're also making it very clear that no individual is allowed to take photographs of the way he or she has voted, or to take any gadget that is capable of taking photographs into the premises of the polling unit. And any person who attempts to buy or sell votes at the polling units may likely be arrested. But I think that ultimately we must position our advocacy towards the political parties and the voters, because it is the political parties that are going to the polling units attempting to influence the conscience of the people and the way they vote. And if there's no willing seller,
there won't be a willing buyer.
There won't be a willing buyer, and vice versa. So I think that both those who sell and those who buy should be advised to refrain from that, because when somebody has bought your vote, you lose the right to complain when there's when the governance is not going in the way you want. So we want good governance. We want to have elected representatives that will minister and truly represent the true wishes of the people and bring good governance that will be to the benefit of the people of Ondo State and the benefit of Nigeria. So we should vote on the basis of ideology, vote on the basis of competence, and also vote on the basis of what the candidates can offer, and not on the basis of what the candidates have given to us in order to influence our voting preferences.
Now, still talking, speaking of influence, INEC, the acronym INEC stands for Independent, the I, Independent National Electoral Commission. How much of independence does INEC have? There have been a lot of questions on or as to whether or not this story, this narrative of the federal might influences the outcome of the elections. It's always believed that INEC works in tandem with the instructions coming from the federal government. How true is this?
Honestly, I don't believe that is true.
You don't believe it is? You're part of the system.
Yes, it's not true. I'm saying it's not true.
Okay.
And I'm saying that it's not true because, one, at there are 12 national commissioners and a chairman, making us 13. We are only engaged in policy direction for the commission. We formulate policies, but we are not the ones who really conduct this election. There's a possibility that on election day in Ondo State, no national commissioner will be here. The ballot papers that will be used for this particular election will be deposited at the central bank. The same thing with the result sheets. Before we open the pallets containing the result sheets and the ballot papers, all the representatives of the political parties must be there at the central bank. No national commissioner may likely be there on that particular day. There is no paid official of the commission that will be at the polling unit. All the presiding officers are going to be core members. The assistant presiding officers are going to be students of federal tertiary institutions. The supervisory presiding officers are going to be staff of federal agencies and commissions and parastatals. The collation officers that will collect this result will be senior lecturers from federal tertiary institutions. So it is Nigerians that are going to conduct these elections, and Nigerians are going to announce the result of this election. And if you look at section 68 and 75 of the Electoral Act, when a returning officer has made a return, and this returning officer is not a staff of the commission, no member of the commission can overturn the result announced by a returning officer. Only a court of law can do that. And if a presiding officer has announced the results from a polling unit, even the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission cannot change it. It can only be changed within the trajectory of the collation process and by the courts. So for me, this whole issue of somebody sitting in Abuja and influencing a result in Ondo State does not hold water, and it doesn't happen.
Well, the reason I asked that question is so you could clarify.
Yes.
That's the news ongoing, popular now in town.
Yes, it's because
And
so
it's
many people don't understand our processes and our procedures and how the commission works. And that's why we keep on explaining that our processes and our procedures are quite robust, and that if the people want a good election, they are going to get it. So the political parties are, some of the political parties are the ones who are still having difficulty agreeing that Nigeria can only be a country of one man, one vote, one woman, one vote, and one youth, one vote. And that things must be done in such a way to allow the people, allow the votes of the people to have value, and allow the votes of the people to be the only determinant on who gets elected and who does not get elected. So, for me, the weak link in our electoral process still remains with the political parties. The moment the political parties play by the rules of the game, presiding officers can even come with ballot papers, resources, and all the paraphernalia for the conduct of elections from their houses. But now, we have to keep on hiding. You hide the resources in the central bank, you hide ballot papers in the central bank, you move the resources and ballot papers and accord them the same security cover you accord to a foreign currency, just because of the trust deficit in the electoral process. The moment we restore trust deficit in the electoral process, the moment the political parties play by the rules of the game, the moment Nigerians really value the value of the vote, elections will just be an ordinary venture. You don't have to declare no movement on election day and so on and so forth for people to go and vote. Election is an ordinary civic responsibility. And we can even conduct election on a Monday, on a Tuesday, on a Wednesday. And if you want to go and vote, you go and vote. If you don't want to go and vote, you go to your farm. And that should be the way things should go.
Okay, the majority of electorates come from the grassroots.
Yes.
People who are not learned, who are not lettered, who do not understand sometimes the language that you and I speak. And these people also matter, as well as much as the elites, they also matter in the process, in the electoral process. How much of education and sensitization are you doing in the local language to ensure that people at the grassroots are carried along the whole entire process?
Well, we are relying on the radio and television to assist us with some of these things under this shadow of the pandemic. But I want to assure you that our people at the grassroots are very sophisticated when it comes to voting, and that some of the elites you are talking about, some of us watch football on election day, and it is those are the grassroots, the ordinary people that go to the polling units as early as 5 o'clock in the morning. The only thing we observed is that because of the number of political parties we had previously, the number of parties on the ballot, and the conflicting nature of their logo, that some of our people get confused, and that leads to void ballots. But for the Ondo governorship election, we are going to have only 17 political parties on the ballot this time around, and I'm sure that the ordinary people are not going to have much of a challenge in identifying the logo of the political party they want to support. But we still need to sensitize them, we need to mobilize them, and we need to reach out to them. And for this particular period, the radio will go very, very far, since you have programs in the local languages and also programs in pidgin and other simple ways of communicating. So we are going to rely on the radio and the television and other social media platforms for this particular period, since we cannot reach them all the time. And
finally, any special arrangement for the physically challenged? They're also part of the process on election day to, ease the whole process.
Yes, we have what we call the brave ballot for persons who are physically challenged, and we are also harvesting at the level of the polling units to know where these clusters are and the type of physical disability they have in some of these places, so that we can deploy what we want to do some of these polling units.
All right, thank you very much for being on the program this afternoon, Mr. Festus Okoye. He's the National Commissioner, Information and Voter Education, INEC. Thank you for coming. Before we go, quickly, your last words.
I just want to plead with the people of Ondo State to come out en masse and exercise their democratic franchise. And we assure them that we are ready for this election and we are going to deliver on our mandate.
Okay, thank you very much for coming once again. My name is Olabisi Olaniyi Oluwasegun. Good afternoon.